Alrighty, welcome everybody back to the channel. Like I mentioned, while I'm not doing videos on the boots, I wanted to do some of my other hobbies. And one of the big ones is pencils. Now I know it's been a while. You know, when you have a new baby, you don't have as much time as you think you're going to. But one of the reasons I love boots is, boot making and cobblery. Cobbler used to be the third most prominent or popular common job or trade in the United States. And now it's something that's almost dead and gone. And that's part of why we love the handmade boots from JK and Nix and Whites, and even the factory made boots like from Red Wing and Thorogood. It's nice to have something that was made with skill right here in the United States. And just like I like that with my footwear, I also like it with my writing instruments. And I've especially come to enjoy vintage American-made pencils. There's only three factories left in all of the United States that still make pencils. So all of the companies that make the products that you see here actually no longer exist. Or if they do exist, they exist on a sheet of paper, and all of the production is outsourced to China and other countries. But these are three of some of my favorite vintage American pencils, and I just wanted to show you them, show you how high quality they are. People are always talking about, especially nowadays with the tariffs and everything, about bringing manufacturing back to the United States. And it's nice to take a look at these vintage pencils because you get to see what quality of manufacturing there was before all of this got shipped off overseas. And so what we're going to do is we're going to compare these pencils to some of the few pencils that are still made in the US and see the difference in quality from then to now. And then we're also going to compare it to some other pencils from around the world, right? So here I'm just going to go over the model. So here we have, and it's going to look familiar to a lot of us who went to school, the Dixon Ticonderoga. Let me stand up here so I can get this well focused for the camera, if it will focus for me. There we go. Now this is going to look like a common school pencil to many people. And the Dixon Ticonderoga was originally made by the Joseph Dixon Crucible Company. Now most of you probably know him as the Joseph Dixon Ticonderoga Company, right? And I have the box. This specific pencil is made sometime in the late 60s or early 70s. And we know that by the box. But if you look at it, look at how clean that ferrule is installed. There's no chipped paint or wood around it. It's nice and clean lettering, nice and durable, made with real American cedar and a well-centered core. And it's a fantastic writing pencil. Now, there's a crack on it due to just the poor state it was stored in over these 50 years, right? But this is a fantastically built pencil. And here's the box right here. I'll zoom out for you. Right here. Flip top box. And you'll see right here, Joseph Dixon Crucible Company, Jersey City, New Jersey. Now what you'll see for these vintage pencil companies is basically anywhere there was a large deposit of graphite, for graphite mines, or cedar wood, that would be either of those are the two main components used in manufacturing pencils, pencil companies would pop up. So you see them popping up all around New Jersey, where there was near Fort Ticonderoga, which is what this pencil is named after, the Revolutionary War Fort Ticonderoga up there in New Jersey. They found graphite deposits there, and they ended up building this pencil and named it after the fort nearby where the mines were. And the graphite that's in these pencils, in these old Ticonderogas, are from that mine, which to me is crazy. And it's one of those things why when you move manufacturing off to places like China, you'll never recapture even just the writing feel, because different graphite from different mines has different feels to it. So even if they kept everything else the same, them moving production to China and using the Chinese graphite, that's why the pencils don't write as well as they used to. And then the poor manufacturing, the drop in quality, and all these other things are why if you buy these pencils nowadays, they're giant pieces of garbage, right? But if you want to grab an old vintage box, like I did, then you'll still have some excellent writing American-made pencils. So these are the Ticonderogas. And they were kind of the middle of the road. The top of the line for Dixon was their executive line, and then the bottom was kind of like the basic no-name branded Dixon, or they also have, what was it called? Not the Quill. They had another one that was below the Ticonderoga, but this was kind of middle of the line. Now we're going to look at some pencils that were kind of the top of their lines. So here we have the Reliance Templar 777. And you see, most pencils you'll see that you used in school and whatnot were number 2 pencils. This one's a number 2 and 4/8. And what that was is that basically it's an F grade core. So most pencils are HB or number 2 nowadays. That's like a medium grade hardness. The next step up would be like a number 3 or H hardness or hard pencil. What a 2.5 or an F is basically like something that's just a little bit in between. It's going to give you about as dark a line as a number 2 pencil, but it's going to give you more of a durable point. You're not going to have to sharpen it as much. And this was important back then because back then, before ballpoint pens were super popular, everybody was writing with fountain pens. And fountain pens are great, but you need to have good quality paper. You can't write in every position. The ink is water-based, so it's not as permanent. And in many ways, pencils are more permanent than fountain pens. They're less disturbed by water and things like that. So tons of office work was done with pencils back in the day. And what's funny is that so many of the fields where these pencils were used, engineering, architecture, construction, all of these different fields that nowadays all of the technical drawings and everything are done on computer programs, or even things like accounting where all of the books are kept on a computer, back then was kept with a pencil. And so having something that was dark enough to read, but had a firm enough point, you weren't having to constantly stop your work and get out of the zone to sharpen was important, which is why you see these F or number 2.5 grade pencils to be so common. And what's funny, and you'll see it, is each one of these has a different way of describing its F core. In this case, it's a 2 and 4/8, and it's almost kind of like where A&W was trying to compete with the McDonald's quarter pounder, and they came up with a 3rd pounder, but Americans thought that it was less because 4 is more than 3 or whatever. That's kind of how they had it there. Everybody was trying to find different ways to describe their F grade and make it seem better than the other. So here at the Reliance Pencil Company in New York, they were calling it their 2 and 4/8 core. Over in Missouri with the Wallace Company, they were calling it the 2 and 2/4. And then also in New York, the Venus Velvet Company was just calling it the 2/3, because 2/3 is more than a half. So obviously that means it's better, right? Just a funny little thing. Another thing is, since these fields, which were at the time dominated by men, and specifically men who had fought in 2 world wars, it's funny to see that the names for a lot of these pencils are masculine or warlike, So with the old Ticonderoga, you have the picture of a Revolutionary War soldier there at arms. I mean, Ticonderoga is a military fort, so you have that military ideals behind it. With the Reliance, you have the Knights Templar here in New York. And then, as you'll see also here with our Wallace, you have the Wallace Invader, right? And this is kind of like their top of the line pencil but coming back to the Reliance, so this was their top of the line, the Templar, the 777 Templar. Their kind of budget pencil was the Ravenwood. But the creme de la creme was this one, and it's made with beautiful Eastern red cedar. It smells, still has that like a cedar closet smell or an old cedar chest. And one thing that you notice when compared to new or current production American-made pencils is if you look at the ferrule, if I can get this, look at how cleanly that's installed. They took some serious time to ensure the quality of this pencil. The paint is thick. You don't see any of the grain of the wood underneath it or any imperfections. These were built to a high standard. And that continues with our next one, the Wallace Invader. And this one has probably my favorite ferrule of any pencil. It has that like electric blue with the silver stripe, the clean blue lettering, and the lacquer, the paint on this one's even thicker. It's a thick paint. You don't see any imperfections. Good quality cedar, a high quality core. And before the 1970s, so with graphite core with pencils is they're made with the ground up graphite, and then they mix it with a clay binder. And the clay is what holds it together, but it's also what can make pencils feel scratchy, right? So it's important that it's very, very finely ground and well mixed. So you don't, I don't know if you've ever written with a pencil and you felt like just it all of a sudden got really scratchy and hard. That's hard bits of clay. To smooth it up, in the 70s, they started to add wax, and that helped smooth things out and made the pencil a lot smoother. But it's still important to well mix your core. And what's unique to me is that even in the quality of the core of these old pencils, a lot of pencils you get in the store today, the modern Dixon, Ticonderogas you get in the store are extremely scratchy. They're full of those hard clay chunks. But here, in the 1940s, in New York, right here in the United States, they were able to make a core that is extremely smooth, even without the wax, just with the clay and graphite, by taking the time to make sure it was well mixed and well refined, and it's an excellent writing pencil, right? This Wallace Invader was made after 1972, and we know that. If we go to the box here, this PMA came out, this Pencil Makers Association came out in 1972. So if you see a pencil box with PMA on it, it was made after 1972. And if it's missing it, it was likely made before. And you can see here the different degrees of hardness I was telling you about. So number 2 is your medium, F is your firm, which is this one, the 2 2/4. 3 would be your hard, 4 would be your extra hard, and then your 1 would be like a B grade or a soft. And these ones were made St. Louis, Missouri. Another fantastic American-made pencil. And then finally is probably the best looking of the bunch. This is from the American Pencil Company, the Venus Velvet Blue Band Velvet. And get a close-up look. This is probably the nicest ferrule, probably close to tied with the Wallace. If I can get it to focus. There we go. It has that dark green band, beautiful brass, and look at how well installed it is again. If you look at both of these, or all of these really, there's no chipped paint or cracked wood. There's no big gaps on the bottom where it's looked like it was improperly sized. There's absolutely no play in any of them. They took a lot of time to ensure that everything on this pencil, look at that, you don't see any imperfections from the wood. Healthy, thick lacquer. Durable lettering. Now it's cracked here from age, right here where it says pressure proofed. And all of the whole box is like that. And I can show you the box right here. This is your Venus Velvet. These are likely from the early 50s. Your Blue Band Venus Velvet, right there. American Lead Pencil Company, New York, made right here in the USA. And you can also see very clearly, wait, hold on, let me just close the box right here. It's a little finicky. It's made Eastern red cedar. You can see that in the darkness of the wood. And also, if you were in person, you could smell it after it's freshly sharpened. So high quality wood, thick, high quality paint, lettering. It doesn't rub off. None of these pencils rub off like you see with cheaper pencils. Just a beautifully well-made product. So you see, American manufacturing used to be something spectacular, where you can get a high quality, world-class product made with the best materials, fine attention to detail, right? And for an affordable price. Now we're going to compare it to some modern American pencils. And so modern American pencils, there's only 3 companies left. There's 2 in Tennessee. The J.R. Moon Pencil Company, which has been bought by RoseArt. The Musgrave Pencil Company, which is still family owned, has been family owned for over 100 years in Shelbyville, Tennessee. And then the General's Pencil Company out of New Jersey, just like Dixon used to be. And so the first one we're going to start with is the RoseArt's USA Gold. Now this is a budget pencil, and you can see when we compare it to our older pencils here, let me zoom out a little bit, it is noticeably thinner. You see that? It's noticeably thinner of a pencil. It's not as thick. And what that is this is really a budget bulk buy, kind of buy it in a big box and throw it in the drawer and forget about it for 5 years kind of pencil. So when pencils are made, they basically take thin planks of wood and they take 2 layers. They grind grooves in there and lay the lead down, and then lay the top layer on, glue it all together, and then they cut it, they slice it, the individual pencils out of the plank. And by making the pencil a smaller diameter, they were able to squeeze out 1 more pencil out of each plank of wood, or what they call a slat. So if you do buy these pencils, you will notice they're a bit on the thin side compared to most even modern produced pencils. But other than that, everything about this pencil is still really good. The lettering is high quality. I've used these pencils all the way up to the nub, and it doesn't rub off and you have all the foil on your hands. They still use good quality cedar, although it's not Eastern red cedar anymore. It's incense cedar, which is basically like cheaper cedar cut from the West Coast that they dye and add chemicals to make smell like Eastern red cedar. It's a pretty well installed ferrule. Has that blue band, kind of reminiscent of the old Venus Velvet. And a decent eraser. And you can get these for about 100 pencils for about 10 to 12 bucks on Amazon. So if you want a good pencil for the kids for school or for having on the office desk, this is a great buy. Great quality, made in Tennessee, good pencil. The lead, they've changed it. In past years, it was a very, light, scratchy lead. I have an older one in my desk that has that old lead in it. But the modern formulation is very dark and soft, very reminiscent of a modern Japanese lead. But this is a good bulk buy pencil. Like I said, it's not as comfortable because it's a thinner pencil, and usually things with thicker grips are more comfortable for long writing. And one other critique is the paint, unlike the others that we just went over, is extremely thin. So you can see a lot of the wood grain through the pencil. If I can get it to focus. You see that? You see the lines here? The camera's not picking it up as well as I would like. But in person, you can basically see the wood straight through. It's almost like a single layer of paint. And you see lots of, you see here, imperfections. It looks worse in person than it does in camera, but it is something to note. This is a cheap budget pencil, quote unquote. But it's much better than the Chinese or Mexican made Ticonderogas. Now here we have, from the other Tennessee pencil company, the Musgrave Tennessee Round. And this is, in my opinion, the best quality pencil currently being made in the United States. You see it has a very beautiful, shiny ferrule brass. It's very well installed, very cleanly, no gaps. There's a chip in here, but that's because this is from the factory seconds box. Durable red lettering, you see that there. Musgrave Tennessee round red cedar, and this is unique in that almost all cedar pencils you're going to get nowadays are that incense cedar that I told you about, where it's basically it's still cedar, but it doesn't have that strong natural scent and rich color that red eastern cedar does out in that New England area. But this uses proper Tennessee red cedar, locally grown and harvested, and you can just see that in the color. If I were to get these two here for you, you can just see that stark difference in color, and it's very reminiscent of the red cedar, the eastern red cedar we see here from New York. It's still a different genus, but it has that strong, authentic smell, right? And here also from Musgrave, this is another one using modern incense cedar, but it's not that Tennessee. You can see that unique Tennessee red cedar. You can see why they call it red cedar, in that reddish, purplish hue, almost a burgundy. And this uses also a very unique Japanese style core. In fact, on the Erasable podcast, they interviewed one of the owners of Musgrave, and he talked about how most American style graphite cores from the graphite mines that we have here, they produce kind of a medium darkness. The ones in Europe, like you'll see with Faber-Castells, produce a very light line, and they're very hard but have great point retention, but they're kind of scratchy. The American ones are kind of in between. They're not too smooth, they're not too scratchy, they're not too dark, they're not too light, right? They're nice middle grounds. But what's really popular nowadays is the buttery smooth, rich, dark lines from the Japanese graphite. The Japanese pencils are really popular right now. And so these pencils were originally produced with cores from Mitsubishi, according to what he said in that interview back in 2018. But he said that they stopped selling them. So I'm assuming they're now producing these Japanese style cores, very full of wax, buttery smooth, rich, dark lines from graphite here in the US, or they're getting it from another supplier. But overall, for me, this is the best pencil you're going to get made in the United States right now. One downside, or two downsides, is one, that Tennessee red cedar is not traditionally cedar that was used for pencil making due to its hardness. So it doesn't work in most handheld pencil sharpeners, like I'll show you right here. Blade type sharpeners like this NJK or this Apsara long point are going to have a bit of a hard time. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a burr type sharpener, like an old school crank sharpener or an electric sharpener to sharpen these. So that's the only downside. Also, the erasers that Musgrave uses, I don't know who they buy them from, but on every single Musgrave that has an eraser, the eraser's ass. So that's the only complaint, right? But other than that, it's a fantastic pencil. Now here's another Musgrave, and I won't talk about it as long. This is the Musgrave Harvest Professional, and I love and hate this pencil. It has the same fantastic writing core as the Tennessee Red, but everything else about it, and it uses incense cedar, which is good. And honestly, the wood and the graphite core is the most important part of the pencil. As long as that core is well centered and it's a good quality core and it's in some good wood that's going to hold it steady, everything else doesn't matter as much. What matters is the writing. But when you're doing lots of writing like I do, those little things start to matter. It's like with boots. All that matters is that the boot holds together, the soles don't fall off, and that it fits right? But when you pay good money, things like the eyelets being properly aligned, the stitching being done right, the soles being properly installed, like all this stuff, the stitch count starts to matter when you pay more. And that's how I feel about this pencil. This isn't a bargain bulk buy pencil like this USA Gold. This is a premium pencil. They charge you $13 a dozen for this plus shipping, and you can only buy it from their online store directly. You can't get it anywhere else, which means that this is essentially after shipping, $21 a dozen. So for $21 a dozen, you get a pencil with shitty paint that's very thin. You see lots of imperfections underneath, so you can see. Crappy lettering that flakes off, and you might think, oh, we've had it a long time, it's short. Nope, it flaked off like this. I took it, I sharpened it. I had a day of classes for some training, and I used that pencil, and I didn't even use it exclusively. I took two pencils. I took a Mitsubishi as well, and after the end of the day, this is what it looked like. The ferrule is poorly installed. It's loose. It has a hard, crappy eraser. And then look at the gap on this thing. This is a real killer. Look at this. And every Musgrave that's a hex pencil has this issue. I don't know what it is with Musgrave, but they seem especially, and it's especially worse on these Harvest Professionals and on the Tennessee Red. They make a hexagonal version like this one of this, and it has the exact same issue. It's almost like they bought the ferrules one size too big. Like they wanted one that would fit both their round pencils, which are a little bit wider than the hex pencils, and the hex pencils, and they went with the bigger one, and they just kind of force it onto these smaller diameter hex pencils, and every single one has this issue. Not all of them are loose like this one is, but they all have this gap. It's like when you put on a pair of pants that's too big for you and you cinch your belt down and you get it clumping up around your waist. That's what this is, but in pencil form, and it's sloppy. And I get this. There's two complaints from Musgrave all the time, and that's that outside of their round pencils, the core centering is hit or miss, which I've experienced on the box I buy. Sometimes it's off center and you have wood all the way up to right here. And then the other issues is the lettering, the poor eraser, and the ferrule. And the excuse I always hear is that, oh, that's part of the charm. It's just old American manufacturing. You know, it's just how things were done back in the day. They keep it old school at Musgrave, and it's part of the character. And for me, that's a little horseshit, because as you just saw here are 4 equivalent pencils from between 1949. In fact, I have another one in there from the 1930s and the mid-1970s. And look, all of these are perfectly installed. None of them, despite me using them out in the field, out at work, at the job that I do, which is blue-collar work, writing my notes, working the Vactor, all of these are beautifully installed. So the idea that off-centered, also look at the cores, all of them are well-centered. So the idea that off-center cores and shitty installed ferrules that don't fit right and poor lettering is how things were done back in the day is a load of baloney. And it really drives me nuts when I hear that excuse, because I have the old pencils and I see the high quality that they were built to. And I see the high quality that other pencils, like their round pencils, are built to. And then I see the quality of their competitors here in the US, from J.R. Moon and from right here where we're going to get to Generals, and none of them have this issue. It's just, really, it's just poor quality control on Musgrave's part. So here's the final company I wanted to talk about. This is Generals, the Generals Pencil Company out of Jersey City, New Jersey. And this pencil is unique in that it has been in constant production since like the late 40s or early 50s. All of these other pencils that you're seeing either went out of production, moved production overseas, or they're recent offerings. All these three are recent pencil offerings, these American-made pencils. This one is basically a contemporary of these guys from the 40s and 50s. These guys were all made at the exact same time. And outside of very little changes, such as switching the lettering from black to the green foil that you see now, and switching this band from being purple back in the day to black now, it's almost stayed exactly the same. And it even has that vintage look. And if you zoom in on it, you see the paint is good, thick, high quality paint. You don't see any imperfections. They still make them with great quality cedar, a good quality, well-centered core, a well-installed ferrule, and actually good quality usable erasers, unlike the Musgrave. Now, it is a very traditional American core in that it does write kind of dark, but it has a little bit of a feedback to it. But it's not scratchy. It's not like there's a bunch of chunks in it. It's just not as waxy as the current in vogue Japanese style cores are. Now, the only issues with this pencil are kind of self-imposed. If you go through the box, you'll see lots of little specks on the paint where I used to paint cars for a living, and I already know what they are. And what it is if you have a dirty environment around fresh paint and things land on it, when you take them off, it leaves a mark. And that's what you see. Sometimes you'll see the lettering being a little off center, and you see lots of chips in this blue band here. So something along their production line is basically taking beautiful pencils and kind of roughing them up a little bit. It's not as fine attention to detail as it used to be, but it's leagues better than what's currently produced on the Harvest Professional line by Musgrave. I will say that I prefer the core of the Harvest Professional, but everything else about the pencil, other than the core and the lead you see in this Generals, is just better. Look at that ferrule. Look at the difference. There's no reason the Musgrave should be like this. Look at the lettering. There's no reason it should look like that. The paint. I mean, they got the important part right, you know, the wood and the graphite, but just everything else, they really fumbled the ball. So this is probably the closest thing you're gonna get still made today. You can get it for $8 on Amazon all day for a box of 12, or you can buy it from them directly for like 16 bucks a dozen. But this is, if you want a vintage pencil made in the modern day, this is it. And then just lastly, I wanted to quickly show you some modern Japanese pencils. So as you can see, that high quality, top of the class level manufacturing is no longer here in the US. They get close, but it's no cigar. And the current producers of the best quality pencils are Japan. And you see this is a cheap budget pencil from the Japanese Eyeball Pencil Company. Look at how beautiful that ferrule is. Look at how well it's installed. Fantastic lettering in wood, well-centered core. Here's from the probably king of pencil companies right now, Mitsubishi. Beautiful burgundy lacquer, durable lettering. I've used these pencils all the way to the stub, and I don't have any flaking from the lacquer. Well-centered, high-quality cores. Fantastic erasers, as good as most block erasers, and perfectly installed ferrules. Now, Tombow recently, within the past couple decades, jumped all their production to Vietnam, but they didn't lose their quality. Perfect lacquer and lettering. Wonderfully installed ferrule. I can get it to focus. High quality eraser. They use white fir instead of cedar because that's what's local to them, and it's more inexpensive, and again, a high quality core. So if you want something that has the quality of these vintage American pencils, then I'd recommend going with Japanese branded pencils. And in fact, that's not just my opinion, that's the opinion of American companies. Cal Cedar decided that they wanted to revamp the Eberhard Faber Blackwing, and they even bought the machine to make the ferrules, the unique ferrules and everything, and they didn't. Cal Cedar doesn't have a factory. They didn't even decide to make a factory here in the US, and they didn't go to any of the 3 American manufacturers to remake this pencil. Nope, they went to Kitabashi. So that's the pencil companies that are in Japan. You have Mitsubishi, you have the Eyeball Company, you have Kitabashi, You have Tombow, which now makes everything in Vietnam, and then finally you have Camel. I don't have a Camel pencil on me, I have some ordered, but all of them, as you can see, are this fantastic level of quality and craftsmanship. Beautiful, high quality lacquer, durable, high quality gold lettering, a beautifully installed ferrule. Being Cal Cedar, they imported or exported a bunch of California cedar over there for use in manufacturing the pencils, and then that high quality Japanese core from Kitabashi. So if you want a top of the line world-class pencil, like with boots, if you care about the little things, right? If it's not just about the wood and the lead, and you want something that's a little easier to come by than maybe some of the vintage ones on eBay, I highly recommend the Japanese pencils. The vintage pencils, they're affordable, but it's kind of a luck of the draw of what you want to find on eBay. I was able to get the Templars and the Venus Velvets for about $15 for the Templars and $17 on eBay for the Velvets for a full box. You can find around $10 plus shipping all day for the old school Ticonderogas, and I got these Wallace Invaders for about $10 or $12 as well. So you can find them, but with the older pencils, the erasers are hard because of all the time they've been exposed to air, so you won't be able to use the erasers. And then sometimes, like you saw, especially with the Ticonderoga, depending on the state they were stored in or the conditions of their storage over the years, there might be some cracking and some other issues. Also, if you get really old pencils, like these ones from the 40s, they use lead-based paint, which it's not going to kill you just writing with them. You're not going to get lead poisoning, but don't chew on them. If you're a pencil chewer, avoid the vintage pencils. But if you want that quality in the modern day, this Mitsubishi, beautiful, probably the best pencil in production at the moment. It's only $7 or $8. It goes on sale all the time for less on Amazon. Free shipping. The Tombow, again, $7 and change plus shipping. The eyeball pencils in the US, you can only really get them from the Daisyo store in packs of 4, but they're only $1.25 for that 4-pack. So you're looking at a little over 30 cents a pencil, right? So if you were to put that in a dozen, you're less than $5 a dozen. The Blackwing is a little bit more pricey. It's about 30 to 35 bucks for the dozen. So, you know, that kind of sucks. But it's not too far off from the Tennessee Rounds. The Tennessee Rounds are $16 plus $6 of shipping, so $22 a dozen. $2.50 a dozen on Amazon for the USA Golds. $21 a dozen after shipping and taxes for the Harvest Professional, and then $8 to $9 on Amazon for the General Semi-Hex. So if you want to get a pencil today, made in America, that's fantastic quality, General Semi-Hex. Or if you don't mind the slightly thinner barrel, USA Gold. But that's it on pencils. I just want to do a quick overview, really highlighting the high quality American made pencils, kind of comparing it to what we have today. And you can see, in my opinion, and it's harder to tell, you know, on the camera, but if you were to come in person and look at how well these pencils are put together, these vintage pencils, these vintage American pencils and the modern Japanese, in my opinion, the American pencils are as good or better because they're made with Eastern red cedar versus these cheaper woods made or used to make most of the modern Japanese pencils. So they're equal in all respects, and in terms of wood, actually surpass them, right? So the idea that these products can't be made in the US, that they can't be done as well as they're done overseas, or as inexpensive as they're done overseas, for me, it's a little bull, because we did it. We did it. I have them. They're in my hand, right? And some of the companies, like Generals, never stopped doing them, right? or Musgrave is learning to do them again, right? So high quality manufacturing, it can come back to the United States. It's just a matter of investing, right? And taking the time and then holding ourselves to that high standard, right? Not just bringing it back and expecting people to buy it because it's made in America, but actually putting in the work to produce a high quality product. But this is just one of my other hobbies is pencils. I know I didn't write with any, but that's because I kind of want to get a different camera setup. I don't have a good camera setup where I can look at a page and write properly, but I can give you a quick glimpse at some of the writing I've done. Here we go. Just so you can see how each pencil looks. So this is the Mitsubishi 9850. You can see it's a dark writing pencil. And then that Tombow and H, if you remember on the pencil hardness scale that we see here, and H would be a number 3. So you can see it's a lighter colored pencil, but that's the nice thing about Japanese is even their hard grade pencils, right, put down a very dark line. That Blackwing is a very dark pencil. The Tennessee Round is very similar. A rich, dark Japanese style cord. The vintage American F cores like this Wallace are probably the lightest writing pencils I own, but I like them because they're still legible, but they're even, I'd say they have double the point retention of even the modern Japanese F and H cores. And then I just got to get the general semi-hex right here for you. If I have it, I don't know if I do. There we go. The general semi-hex. You can see it's pretty comparable in tonal quality to a lot of the Japanese pencils. It's not as smooth. Like I said, they don't use as much wax, but it's still very good quality. So if you want a current production, high quality American pencil, General's semi-hex probably gets my biggest recommendation. But if you want something with the more current in vogue, smooth writing dark graphite, and that fantastic red cedar, the Tennessee Round is another great option. But I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you guys found it entertaining. If you have any questions about any of the pencils, feel free to ask away in the comments. I gotta find, like I said, a different tripod or something that will allow me to place my camera in a way that I could freely write. And then once I do, that's when I'm going to do more videos on the pencils individually. I have way more than just this. This is just a small sample of some of the pencils that I have. I have boxes of all of these. And I could do reviews of them one by one. That's also why I haven't done any reviews of my fountain pens, because fountain pen reviews without any writing are basically worthless. And like I said, I haven't found a good way to record myself actually writing. So I'll have to find a different tripod, and then I'll be able to get the fountain pen reviews up and running as well. But it was just more of a topic of pencils in general, and didn't require any writing, is why I felt comfortable recording it. But I hope you all enjoy it, and hope you have a good day. Thank you.